Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of True Safety Podcast. On this episode, I'm jumping back in. My name is Seth, and I'm here with Apolonia Rockwell, the host. Apollonia, how is your Friday morning going?
It is awesome. I had a great workout this morning, and I have my cousin's baby shower this weekend, so I'm really excited. I can't believe it's Friday.
Yes, yeah, indeed. It has gone by quickly, and in case our listeners don't know, Apollonia is, leading True Safety. She has also been featured on Forbes 30 Under 30, and you just had your second baby. So how is baby Goldie doing?
Baby Goldie is fantastic. The house is wild. While I'm getting ready for work every morning doing my hair and makeup, I hear mass chaos, like a scene from the Avengers. I don't even know what's going on in the back. It's like screaming, yelling, crying. It's a mess. It's wild. So yeah, my life is out of control.
Love it.
Yeah, with the two babies.
So speaking of that, life can get stressful. And so today we're actually going to be talking about stress in the workplace, how to cope with stress. And you're actually kind of working on, we don't want to say yet you're in development, but you're beginning to kind of lay the groundwork for actually a training that would address this. Tell me more about that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. So I feel like our best products are developed when they're customer developed, if that kind of makes sense. When our customers come to us time after time for the same product, maybe. And one thing that's been universal with trucking companies, manufacturing, construction, oil and gas, one thing that's been consistent is stress. And to be honest with you, I'll share this with our insider group, people that listen to the podcast, is that we were looking at developing a mental health course, but I don't know if the industry is ready for those words like mental health. I don't know if the construction industry is ready for it yet. So it really is mental health, but we're going to call it stress management, and it's all the same thing. But I'm really, really excited. Red Rocks Community College, Colorado's OSHA training institution, is going to be, they're really interested in developing out a course as well. And the topic is on their mind, mental health, stress, coping mechanisms in the workplace.
Love it. Yeah. And that's going to be with John Dunsmore, who we've had on the podcast, and he's coming back on soon too, we'll probably talk about this some. So why is this needed? Because when it comes to stress, I think there's oftentimes a perception of there's going to be stress at work and you leave it at work, and there's going to be stress at home and you leave it at home. But even kind of this, it's like, okay, you just deal with it. You figure it out on your own and you deal with it. And I think from a management perspective, a lot of managers and, executives over the years have had a perspective of, you need to kind of deal with your own stuff. Like you need to deal with the stress. And not until recently has there been conversations of let's actually address this from a corporate level, from a team level. So why is this needed? And help provide some context for this.
Yeah, I think that climbing out of the pandemic and just this year, these last couple months, re-entering in what seems like a pandemic round 2 of COVID outbreaks. I'm sure right now as you're listening, you probably know of somebody who is sick and
20.
knows. Yeah. Or you are just sick.
Everybody that wasn't this time last year is currently
currently sick right now. I know. I can't even count how many people that I know are sick right now. It's pretty crazy. But I think that us as humans, we're experiencing trauma fatigue is how I've been hearing psychologists name this outbreak round 2. What we're entering in 2022 is just this. there's so much uncertainty again, and our minds have gone through COVID first round uncertainty, and now life is back to normal, and now we're kind of going into this shutdown mode again, where restaurants and businesses are requiring masks again, and so it's so up and down right now. Are vaccines required? Are they not? Am I going to be fired because I'm not vaccinated or not? So there's just so much going on right now. Our bodies can't deal with all this stress and all this unknown. And so this stress cannot be left at the door. It's not left at home. We're only human. And so everything that we're dealing with, we're bringing it to the workplace, obviously. And that affects every single thing we do at work, the decisions that we make, how we make people feel while we're at work. It was really interesting. The professionals over at Red Rocks, she was describing the definition of stress is having expectations. She said it a lot better than I will right now, but it was like having expectations on yourself that you're unclear if you can accomplish or not. And so having demands on yourself that you're unsure if you can accomplish or not. And I was like, whoa,
yeah,
that is huge. If we just had a class about maybe identifying what stress is, that's one thing. And then we want to roll in what are the coping mechanisms for stress, and what do those look like? And that way you can identify yourself. Oh my gosh, I always default to this coping mechanism. I always default to this one. And maybe I can tweak that a little bit in myself. So I think identifying coping mechanisms, that way you could have tools when you leave this class, will be super beneficial.
Yeah. Why should businesses care? At the end of the day, a question that, if any executives are listening, whether or not we're not going to just assume that every executive is solely financially focused, but also sustainability is a thing, and spending money on courses and trainings and different things, that's money. Is that going to help improve the bottom line? Is that going to help improve the margins? Is that going to help take care of, financially take care of your team? How is stress actually going to be impacting the bottom line of a business? And so for the listeners that are thinking people just need to deal with it on their own, that's not impacting our bottom line, help some of us understand how that's working.
Yeah. So to me, it's really simple. When I just heard, as a leader, and I'm listening to the simple definition of stress, of unclear expectations, not sure how you can meet a deadline, things like that, it made me reflect as a leader. All right, how am I causing stress as a leader onto my team? So that's one piece. And then number two, if I know the coping mechanisms, if I know how to identify stress better, then I can identify that in my team better. And so what's important, why I think employers should take this seriously, is because as leaders, we have to provide clear paths to the destination, right? Whether you're an owner, whether you're a supervisor, whether you're a frontline manager, whatever it is, you have to provide clarity to the team. And if it's not crystal clear where you're going, then the team can get frazzled and stressed. And where does that lead? That leads to burnout, or that leads to uncertainty, and uncertainty leads to, okay, maybe I'm not good here. I need to go to the next company next door, whatever it is. And we're already experiencing a shortage, maybe not so much a shortage, but the great resignation that we've been talking about in previous episodes. And so right now it's hard to retain talent. And so I think that if team members knew simple steps on how to reduce stress in their team, I think they're going to see a direct result as less turnover. So, and that affects the bottom line. So that's why I think it's important for employers to invest in a class like this.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And you mentioned the Great Resignation, and a big piece of why that's happened has been, workplace stress, which is typically normal. Like there's, I think historically there's always been a level of stress that comes with work. And so I was reading one study that initially showed, that in times of like trauma or times, like a pandemic, that's actually when people, they hold on to what they can. And so, that's why for, during the shutdowns, there wasn't a lot of people resigning for like maybe a 6-month period at the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of people were like, well, a lot of people they've lost their jobs. I still have a job. And so even though I don't like it, and even though I was planning on resigning in 3 months to pursue something else, like I just need to hold on. And so you had this like buildup of, 6 to 9 months of where normally people would be moving on and quitting jobs and resigning and moving to other jobs because of normal workplace stressors, but they held on to it all. And so then now we're experiencing all of this like pent up. And so that's why there was like this wave of resignations, because then there was like the new normal or whatever. So then you had tons of people resign. And I think as a result of all of that stress, you also have a lot of people that are seriously rethinking like their career, what they want to do,
their career,
everything. And so I think that is really, really relevant. And everybody has, I want to talk about coping mechanisms a little bit because you mentioned that. Obviously that's something that a course or training would really go deep into, but, everybody has healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms, and different things, but like, just at like a high level, like what are some things that if people are experiencing, a lot of stress that they know is impacting their work life and their personal life right now, like what are some, pointers or, kind of resources you would point towards them?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll give you 2 things. One I thought was so interesting listening to the professionals at the OSHA Training Institution and Red Rocks Community College was there are healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? And so one coping mechanism, she said that the vast majority of people result to is shutting down. And that a lot of people, when stress is at an all-time high, when things just aren't going your way, like one default thing to do is to like shut down. And as a leader, as a coworker, I mean, if you spot that in somebody, if you see that, hey, when there's a lot on this person's plate and their tendency is to shut down, it's just something. You'll leave this class with better identification tools on in yourself and with other people. So I thought that was really interesting, shutting down. One thing, there's healthy and unhealthy, but one thing is to take not so much shutting down, but to taking a pause, taking a break, and you don't necessarily have to shut your phone off, but if you need to just power that thing down for like 10, 15 minutes. So that way you're overstimulated and you need to shut everything down, your laptop, the phone, and you need to be in a peaceful state. That way you can recollect your thoughts. And how did she put it? It's really interesting. We have so many things going on right now in our minds and our lives, right? We're almost like default to be multitasking at every single minute of your life. Like it feels normal to be multitasking now in days with technology at our fingertips. And so it's interesting what happens when our brain has nothing to be looking at in your hand, your phone, your laptop, your emails. And so kind of reflecting and getting unstimulated is something to keep in mind to do if you're just about to, if you just need to take a second. And how I thought that these were really interesting as it relates to the workplace, because I told her, hey, like during incident investigations, 9 times out of 10, most people are like, I was rushed, or maybe I wasn't even rushed by my supervisor. Like I was rushing myself is initially how they'd put it is, I was just hurrying. I was like in just like a default work now, think later type of mindset, I was stressed out. And since I was stressed, I just I was going along with the movements and I wasn't putting much thought into this. And then bam, I smashed my finger. Boom, I slipped and fell. Now I broke my foot at work.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think taking space just to disconnect and, try and recognize how stimulated we often are, and, disconnecting from that is huge. All of this kind of factors into what we'd call like unseen hazards in the workplace. Is this talked about very often?
No, this is one thing that prior to 2022, so on a consulting basis, let's say, when we're helping clients come up with their next year's monthly safety meetings topics, let's say, for an example, like their 12-month topics for the year, we would do the basics, the OSHA compliance topics, and we would never put in there like the unseen hazards, but that's something that we're really focusing on with clients this year. Is that's great that we'll talk about the OSHA compliance stuff, but let's actually schedule a meeting for just this. It's called the unseen hazards. Yeah. And it's somebody's emotional mindset that they're showing up at work as that day. And it's really interesting. Yeah, the unseen hazards.
What would maybe some of those other unseen hazards other than stress be?
Oh my gosh, anger, frustration, anxiety. When your coworker is, they came to work that day and they weren't in their best mindset. It maybe doesn't even have to be at home stuff, but it could be because what is in front of them, what's on their plate at work is really stressful. Like they're not sure, they're unsure. They don't have that clear path that we were talking about how they're going to get a project done. So since there's so much unknown to them, stress or work is really stressing them out. And some people's default is to get angry, is to be frustrated and hold anxiety. And so those are like the main emotions that when working with the local counseling facilities here in Weld County and talking to those psychologists, and I'm like, hey, when you're categorizing your typical worker, like oil and gas construction worker, what are they commonly in here to get seen for? What can you help them with? And she was like, anger, frustration, anxiety, and stress.
Yeah. And those things they impact our work, the quality of our work, which then, is going to impact our team. And, we talk about it often on this show of how most incidents that happen and accidents that happen, like the training was there. It's all of these interpersonal things. And so, but we've just been focusing on the training for so long. We've just been focusing on like, here's what OSHA says you need to do. And it's like, what are all the other things that OSHA doesn't say you need to do? What are the mental health, what are the coping mechanisms? What are the stressors, the unseen hazards that are potentially playing more of a role in some of these accidents? So I think this is huge. As we kind of bring this conversation to a close, why are you so excited about this idea of this, training that you guys are working on?
Yeah. I'm really excited about this because the first severe incident that I ever worked on, I've talked about it in podcasts, but it's the incident that really ironically helped true safety become true safety was when an employer, a North Dakota, keep in mind we're in Colorado, listeners, when a North Dakota company came out here and they were operating in Colorado, they called me and said, hey, the owner was like, hey, I have a guy who mangled both of his hands off and he's in my passenger seat right now. Where's the local hospital near here? And I worked on that incident investigation, but after that gentleman, after his hand surgery, and I was talking to him about how that day started, like, how did we get here? If we could rewind, how did this happen this morning? Like, I will never forget what he told me when he was like, all right, I started my day and my coworker like took my Mountain Dew. I don't remember what it was, like took my Mountain Dew from the refrigerator. And then we started boxing. We got into a fist fight. And I remember writing in my incident investigation, I'm like, okay, Like, he took your Mountain Dew. Okay. What happened next? And so, like, there was just anger and frustration. It's not that he didn't know to not he stuck a pole into an auger and he didn't lock it out. So it re-energized and it pulled his hands in and it mangled his fingers. So that's what happened. But he didn't need more lockout tagout training. He didn't need PPE training. There was anger. There were human elements that happened that morning. There was anger. There was frustration. There was unknown. These two people didn't get along. And because of that, the coworker even knew what he was doing. He knew that the injured employee was doing something wrong, but like turned a blind eye because they just got in a fight. They just got in a fist fight. They're not going to help each other. They're not going to be their brother's keeper. Mm-hmm. And so when there's this anger, frustration, stress, I feel like that's how incidents happen.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm excited. Kind of a long way to that answer.
Yeah.
That's why I'm excited, because I think we need to look at incidents a little bit different.
Well, this training will certainly help. And as this is, as this is developed over the next couple months, we'll continue to update our podcast audience, because it'll be a fun thing to roll out and really important. So I'm excited that you're working on this. So Apollonia, this has been wonderful. Thank you again for taking time out of your schedule for the podcast.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll talk to you all soon.